Something we need to consider about Ghost in the Shell is that it is a classic. Anyone who's been around long enough to appreciate the medium of anime knows about the series. Oftentimes, the initial interpretation that we consume the material in becomes this revered object of art. So when studios begin to talk about a reimagination of the series in the form of a new adaptation, everyone comes to claim their seat at the table. I've personally seen it happen with the 1995 manga Trigun. The original anime series experimented with tone and certain plot points while keeping the designs accurate. In Stampede, the story itself seems more modernized, still preferring some of its own original canon while changing around certain sequences of events. Overall, fans had their own choice of which interpretation they preferred themselves out of these adaptations. In the comments that I've been getting on my previous video, which I heavily appreciate, thank you so much, I've witnessed a certain spread of fans dedicated to the Ghost in the Shell series. Most people are happy about Saru's adaptation and their faithfulness to the source material. There are some people who voice their preference for the more serious, more stern tone that the original film had, as well as standalone complex, which I will be addressing in this video. So let's get into this week's episode. There's two little instances that I want to point out while talking about the series. In the opening of this week's entry, we're given a viewing of the bar scene, which in terms of tone for the narrative as well as characterization is different from the other entries that we know. The literal subject matter of the meetup regarding the crew's attitude towards public safety and Aramaki's demeanor involving Kusanagi is telling on both of these topics. When we understand the dynamic between the two groups, it's not as if either one has a chokehold on the other. On the contrary, they're hiding sneaks on each other as they attempt to get a good deal out of their relationship with one another. Rather than holding the other one in malice, it seems lighthearted, both in terms of plot advancement and characterization of the soon-to-be Section 9. The fact that Bato planted fireworks on the tires of Aramaki's car, thus enacting Aramaki to switch to his moped, showcases their cheeky attitude towards one another. Even when one side gets one over on the other, the opposing side doesn't conform to the other's pace. At least, that's how it was in these past two episodes. Moving forward, we'll see that tongue-in-cheek mood while being on-paper allies. In this little scope we've been given, we see the personal lives that they lead, whether together at the bar or at home with their significant other. Togusa may act silly, inexperienced, or emotional as we'll see, but the fact is that he has a family back home that he needs to work for. As dangerous as his job is, he needs to be on his best foot when moving forward. Still, that doesn't stop him from matching the rest of Section 9. So, then we get to the scene that I don't think I can show much of on YouTube. Compared to the manga, it is more tame, but still it gets the point across. Major Kusanagi indulges in pleasure. This reveal, whether you see it as that or not, is purposefully trying to convey that point that Section 9 as a whole is all work while also being all play. They lose themselves in what they want, and it depicts this side of them that's been lost in other interpretations of the media. The film, as I described in my previous video, is tonally distant from anything we've seen in this new series. It purposefully acts this way to evoke a philosophical feeling and message that it wants to convey. In a sense, the film itself, but also the characters in it, are very stoic. We can see it in the boat scene with Bato and Kusanagi, their reactions to events in the narrative, and their motives for how they act. An argument that I want to make about characterization in general, disregarding the differentiations we're making, is that character depth isn't only about creating deep character moments within a story. It is also about making your different people multifaceted in the way that they think, act, and deliver. Without this facet to your story, the world you're creating doesn't feel as lived in as it possibly could be. This is why I believe having Aramaki pull Kusanagi out of her vacation leave for an operation, even as cruel as it is necessary to providing that complexity that the original Ghost in the Shell and even standalone complex was missing. Before we go on any further, please know that I have only just begun standalone complex based on a recommendation made on my last video, so please give me some grace. I would love it if you could correct any mistakes I do make about the series. Regarding that, this is my first impression of the show. Functioning in similar manners to series such as Mushishi, the week-to-week case operations gives a depth to the world in itself. It is very easy to conduct world building in this manner because you are not bound by a strict single pressing narrative, but more so to showcase the day-to-day functionality of what a group like Section 9 are expected to handle. In this way, Standalone Complex has created a multifaceted world. There will always be a place in my heart for series that accomplish this in an authentic manner. However, my preference for narratives, not entirely but majorly, lies in what can be accomplished with the characters. It's not black and white. I'd prefer it if every story struck a balance, but I have favorites for what we do have. Compared to each other, I will always choose the signed Saru Ghost in the Shell. It may be early to decide that with just 2 episodes, but I also know what to expect from the studio's level of production. From just these entries into the series, we've seen the faithfulness, thus getting to look at the original design of the characters' personalities. In my last video, someone mentioned that this is the character assassination of Major Kusanagi, but I completely believe it's intentional. The last scenario I want to look at, which is in comparison to the 1995 film, is how the dialogue between Kusanagi and Togusa was handled. In episode 2 of this new series, the garbage man case is tackled. This is the same one covered in the original film. However, the subject matter of the discussion is wildly different when you look at it in retrospect. The messages they convey also differ. In the movie, Togusa was curious as to why a person like him, who isn't chromed out in any significant manner, who comes from a police unit that isn't special operations, is in Section 9. In a serious yet reassuring tone, Kusanagi describes the idea that his background and the way he carries himself adds a fresh perspective to the team of Section 9. The spot is meant specifically for him, whereas without him, everyone in the group wouldn't handle events as well as they could with him. This was my main takeaway from this scene when I watched the film. As we turn the scope to zoom in on the new series, the main portion of the narrative that got cut out of the film was that Togusa and the woman who was being hacked are personally close. Upon hearing about the state of the interpreter, Togusa recoils and questions why she is involved in this. In the same way as the movie, it shows the human side to Togusa, but through showing rather than telling. Kusanagi addresses the concern properly and then brushes it off as someone who has been a professional in this industry for a long time. It displays the distinction between the two people, and while brushing it off, she treats Togusa in a kind of comical way. Across the different adaptations, they interpreted the same situation and topics in different ways. Using tone and showing versus telling, we can see how each series wants to tell their story. Between all the different entries, both mentioned here and those who we have not talked about, these Ghost in the Shell adaptations have been wanting to tell their own version of the world, characters, and story. The direction they took the IP in is intentional in all rights, and I'll say it again as I said in my last video, there is no objective sense of the best adaptation. They are different narratives told for different people. Anyways, that'll be all from me. Thank you for all your comments on my last video. I appreciated being recommended different series, being educated, and hearing your different viewpoints and opinions. It would help me a lot if you could leave a like and subscribe for more if you're enjoying this. I want to talk a lot more about this new series of Ghost in the Shell, and all of your support is greatly appreciated. Anyhow, thank you so much. See you all later, you cool people.